professor, reader, and later the head of department from 1954 to 1965. As professor of psychology, he headed various departments and colleges in the subsequent years. He has been associated with postgraduate departments of psychology, philosophy, social work, and Indology at the Bangalore University. A member of various academies, boards, and committees related to academics as well as fine arts, he was a vice president of Mythic Society of Bangalore and also editor of the Society's quarterly journals. His publications in English, Kannada, Sanskrit, and Pali have a wide span. These include historical accounts of various saints, sociological work on India, Indian psychology, cultural anthropology, parapsychology, and others. He also has interest in Ayurveda and received the Karnataka Rajyotsava Award in 1986. Professor Ramachandra.
ನಿಂತ್ರೆ ವಾಸಿನ ಇದು ಬೇಡವಾಯ್ತು ಇದಿರ್ಬೇಕಾ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ Let me continue standing that I have started it. Well, I am supposed to speak to you on philosophy, presumably on Indian philosophy. Well, as you know, philosophy, the word philosophy means the love of wisdom. It is derived from two Greek words, philos and sophos. Philos meaning the love or pursuit, and sophos, which in Latin became sophia, wisdom, the love of wisdom. But Indian philosophy is characteristically different in approach. The philosophy in the West, right from the days of Pythagoras, was more an intellectual pursuit, a device to understand the things around us and to have an insight into why men do things as they do, what they do. Philosophy largely in the West branched off into three divisions. One, the philosophy of the natural things, or an understanding of the things around us as they are, which later on got crystallized in science. The second division of philosophy was ethics, or an inquiry into the human behavior and conduct, the norms of behavior, the values that men live by, and so on. The third division of philosophy was metaphysics, or an inquiry into the ultimate reality, the first principles, the cause of things, and so on. So philosophy largely in the West has been accommodated in these three divisions. But in India, we don't have a word for this kind of philosophy. We don't have an exact Sanskrit equivalent for the love of wisdom or the pursuit of wisdom, which philosophy really means. With us, philosophy is a package deal. It does not only deal with the intellectual appreciation of things around us, it's a plan. It includes a plan and programming of our life. We should know so that we can order our lives. We should know things around us so that we can plan our lives better. And the intellectual pursuits would be meaningless unless we can derive a meaning for our life as a result of all that knowledge. So philosophy in India is called the Darshana. It is not the pursuit which is purely intellectual in character, it's a life pursuit. The entire being inclines towards understanding the things around us or the things within us, so that what we know could be practically applied. It has a practical aspect. So this Darshana, which is the nearest equivalent in Sanskrit for the word philosophy, includes not only the philosophy of natural things, ethics and metaphysics, it includes several other things like religion. Religion, which is a kind of relating ourselves, religiare, to the things unseen. The religion, which is a sort of a bridging of the gap between what we know and what we can't know, the visible and the invisible, the tangible and the abstract, this man's attempt to relate himself to the things which he sees as well as the things which he does not see, this is religion, religiare. So this religion was included in the scope of philosophy. And a particular branch of discipline which has become important since the past 60-70 years, axiology, or the science of values. What are the things we hold dear, hold precious? What do we live for? So the values of life, the goals of our existence, of our conduct. So this axiology also is included within the framework of philosophy. And ontology. So Indian Darshana is a very composite affair. Its scope is wider than what we normally mean by philosophy in English. Well, to give you a little insight into the beauty of this word Darshana, the word is derived from the root drisha. Drisha is to see. You have the familiar word drishti. Drishti is the sight. So drisha, with a grammatical suffix added to it, which we call yut, drisha is ocular sensory perception. An individual gets to know about the things outside him through the medium of his sense organs and the mind. So this drisha, it relates to the positive experiences that an individual has as a result of the impingement of an outside object on his sensorium, on his sense organ. So this drisha is not merely a function of the mind, a ramification of your intellection, a sort of a cerebration, but it has to deal with tangible things which your sense organs can grasp. So this darshana has the root drisha in actual observation, which includes experience. Observation which is not marginal, which is not merely peripheral, which is not merely sensory in character. The eye sees, but the mind registers, analyzes and adds value to what the retina gets as an after image. So this experience as something beyond the sensory perception, this is the significance of the word, the root drisha with lut added to it. So it is not what you see that is important. What you become as a result of what you see is more important. Beyond observation, more than observation, as an additive value to the observation is your experiential aspect. So this drisha means you live in the world. It is not as important as what life means to you on your own per se. When this word drisha, which is at the back of this word darshana, it emphasizes that your analysis of things, your knowledge of things, your programming of things should ultimately depend on your own personal experience. This has its own consequences. Philosophy in the West is characterized by the persons who thought about them. We speak of the Kantian philosophy. Immanuel Kant sat and thought about the world and the beyond, the relationship between the worlds, the relationship between man, the world and the God. And he wrote down the Kantian philosophy, Hegelian philosophy, Berkeleyan philosophy, the philosophy of Hume, the philosophy of Locke. Philosophy in the West is known by the individual persons, Tom, Dick and Harry, who evolved a sort of a system of thought, systematized what he thought and wrote in books and gave them to us. Not so in Indian philosophy. Our philosophy does not have names to reckon with. Our philosophy, Darshanas, have to reckon with traditions, the systems of thinking, the systems of experience. And we don't have people like Kant or Hegel or Berkeley or Hume or Schopenhauer or Bergson to order our philosophy. And the Sutrakaras like Gautama, Kanada, these are little more than names. They were not real historical persons. Well, the Darshana therefore is what individuals tend to become as a result of going through a segment of their life. Well, the Darshana therefore belongs to a different order of thinking. This has to deal with the traditions, the ways of thinking. So Darshana is not this or that philosophy. It consists of different ways of philosophizing. People with different experiences tend to become different things. And when they are inclined to organize their experiences, they would put forth their views in characteristically different ways. So this is the significance of the word Darshana. Darshana is not my philosophy, it is our philosophy. People who have lived in a climate, people who have lived in a segment of time, people who have lived in a particular socio-economic status, and people who have participated in a particular historical sequence, there is an inclination, there is a tendency on their part to look at things in characteristic ways. So Darshana is a way of thinking and approaching. It is not a system of thought. This is what I wanted to convey while explaining the significance of the word Darshana, which is derived from the root Drisha. Well, the next stage, this way of thinking, when it has to be reduced to certain systematic documents, we have another word for it, the Shastra. Darshana, while we deal with Indian philosophy, there are some basic concepts which have to be made clear before we deal with systems of the Darshanas. So Darshana is what an individual seeks to understand as a result of his experience. In the Rig Veda itself, you find the earliest mention of this word Darshana. There is a particular situation when the individual has lost his peace of mind and he is trying to recover it. He was at rest he was tranquil, but due to a commotion outside, there was a stress within, and the individual lost it. He is no longer tranquil. But the individual does not stop at that. The individual tries to recover the tranquility which has been lost. And the Vedic verse says, Nashtam Pashumiva Darshanaya. As an individual who has lost his cow would be happy to have a look at his cow again, the individual who has lost his peace of mind would love to get it back. Nashtam Pashumiva Darshanaya. Well, this means that this knowledge or the entire insight into life is there within us, but it is lost when we grow up. So the Rigveda says the darshana is only an attempt to recover what we had all the time and we appear to have lost it. And in the same same context, the Rigveda says, every individual sleeps. Sleep is the natural state. When he wakes up, there is a departure from this natural state. So a man who is awake seeks to go back to sleep, because in sleep there is oneness. While one is asleep, he does not know that he is sleeping. He does not have a cognition of the outside world. He does not know on what he is sleeping. He is not even aware of the I, the ego. So it's an entire lapse of the personal consciousness. But the individual is not dead. He continues to breathe and the vital functions go on. And the individual wakes up again and takes the thread of his activities from where he left before he slept. So the Rigveda, in an intuitive flash, it says the individual sleep is his most natural state, and all that he does during his waking time is to return to the sleep, return to the absolute unconscious unity of the being, where the individual was one. And the Rigveda in the same context says, while we are awake, there is a hierarchy among us, there is a division among us. There is a rich man, there is a poor man, there is a king, there is a servant, there is a man, there is a woman. But a person who sleeps has none of these. The king sleep and the beggar sleep, they are substantially one, the same kind of experience. So beneath all of us is that common experience which is sleep. And we are awake, we are means that sleep has been disturbed. And our hankering, what we do with our speech, what we do with our mind, and what we do with our body, the trikarana, the three means, are only to get back to the state of unity of existence. The individual is one, so one in fact that he is not able to distinguish him apart from others. There is no I, you, or I, this experience. This I is not a bipolar experience. When we say I in our waking life, it is a bipolar experience. I as against you or it. But in sleep it is unity which is unbroken. Even by this ego subjective reference and the objective reference. The Rigveda says, Darshana is only this. Darshana is that the individual has come out of this unity, has wandered away from this state of absolute bliss, and he tries to get back to it. So, Nashtam Pashumiva Darshanaya. So, this philosophy is an activity of the entire individual. It's not an activity of the mind only. And it does not refer only to a pastime or a preoccupation. It deals with your entire life, what you eat, how you eat, and what you do, and the family, everything. It's a blanket sort of an expression, darshanaya. And the darshanas that we have come down to us in ordered, systematic documents. For this, soon after the Vedic period, I wonder, am I making sense to you? I would like to be assured of because not knowing your backgrounds or your inclinations, whether I am speaking the same language to you, I am not quite. Well, there are two ways of approaching this subject. One is to give a historical evolution. What was it in the Vedas and how it developed in the Upanishads and how in Buddhism, Jainism and so on, down to the 20th century. Well, I am not very fond of that way of historical analysis. But the other is to develop, to provide an insight into the very basic structures, the essentials of what the darshana is. And we have to make use of the chronological sequences here and there, by and large, and we don't go by it. The Veda itself is a document of an individual's aspiration to come back to this state. And in one of the suktas, in the 10th mandala, the Rig Veda says that individual is an evolved one. That individual has really lived sadiva. He has lived, really lived. And we all of us only breathe. But there are some individuals who live. We merely exist. But there are a lot of people who grow and thrive. The Veda makes a difference between the asat and the sat. Asat is we only breathe. We live by the doctor's certificate. We don't need it, but like the doctor has to certify that somebody is dead. So he can certify that somebody is alive. So we are all alive in that sense only. But where we really link ourselves with our moorings and our goals, this is real life. Where did we come from and where are we heading towards? If we can link up the past, present and the future, that's really life. You have occupied yourself in the three dimensions of time, and the life is worthwhile. And the Rig Veda says a person could be called sat or really existing when he can sleep when he is awake. Jagarito suptamiva. So that's to say, when we are awake, the world is divided into, classified into, grouped into, segmented into several sense data. What is the world like to us? Some shapes which the eye can grasp, some sounds which the ear can grasp, some contacts and the cutaneous sensation, and so on and so forth. The entire world which was given to us is one. Our sense organs break them down into several units. So the world, we are destroying the world. We are destroying the unity of the world in order to understand the world. It's the fundamental analytical error that the sense organs are equipped with. So the entire world which is one, we break up into tiny bits. Audible things, visible things, and so on. And in the bargain, our ego also gets structured, segmented, fractionized, so that I am a seeing man, I am a hearing man, I am a smelling man. So the ego also gets, the unity of the ego gets lost. So the waking life is one long unending series of fractionings, segmentations, divisions, and every time an individual breaks up the unity into tiny bits, there is the dukkha or the stress or the strain. So sleep is refreshing to us. When we sleep, we are happy because we no longer fractionize, we no longer divide, we no longer throw things asunder and group them and classify them at will. So the Rigveda says, dukkha is necessarily involved in the waking life. When you are awake, you can't be without the dukkha, because basically you are doing something which is unnatural. What was one, you are breaking it into many. And who is one is now many, manifold. Eko anekasya. One individual becomes many individuals. Don't we are one in the office, one on the road, one at home, and one in the room. So we naturally divide ourselves into, and a man who is really living, the Sat man, he would be like a sleeping man, a sleeper, even when he is awake. The differences don't bother him. He does not contribute to the differences of the world, and the differences of the world don't reach him. So he becomes impervious to what's going on around him. So a distant echo of this Rigvedic thought you find in the Bhagavad Gita, when it whispers into your ears the secret of living. Nodvijate lokan, lokacha nod. It tells you, don't excite the world and don't get excited by the world. Well, this state, your Rigveda says, real philosophical fruition is when you reach a stage when the world outside you does not annoy you, does not please you, does not excite you, and you are not contributing anything to excite the world, annoy the world. So the darshana really is a return to the original state. So there is not much of a difference between knowing and ignorance. The more and more you know, the more and more you have to unknow. It's vidyancha avidyancha yastadveda ubhayang saha. The Veda says, you think you know, but when you know something, your ignorance about the other things looms large. Each time you know, you are really adding to your ignorance. Well, in this state of darshana, it is not knowing, it is being complete and full. And for purposes of communication, for purposes of edification, and purposes of documentation, they have evolved a technique of enclosing this insight in a framework which is intellectually valid. And this they call Shastra. So darshana would be meaningful to us, would be an object that we can handle only when it becomes a darshana, only when it becomes a Shastra. I might have a vision, but of what use is it to you unless I communicate that vision to you? And you might then take it for what it is worth. So this communication and documentation in a particular framework is known as the Shastra. Well, the word Shastra also is very interesting. It's the best way to understand things Indian is to know Sanskrit, because The words themselves have a glamour of their own, a personality of their own. Like the Darshana. Darshana has a force about it which you don't find in the word philosophy or metaphysics or ethics. They are lifeless words to us. But this Darshana is a very meaningful word. And the more you get into the roots of it, the more illuminating it becomes. Words acquire a personality and a color and a complexion and a texture. So this Shastra also is likewise, is derived from two roots. Shastra. Shas is one, trying is another. Shas is to utter, to ejaculate, to praise, to distinguish one thing from all others. So Shasati anena trayate cha iti shastra. That's to say, on one side, you look at the world and you exercise your discretion and you distinguish between what are desirable and what are not desirable, what is truth and what is falsehood, what is really existing and what is not existing. So this Shasana or Shasate or Shas is to tell you about the real things, reality. Tattva hitayor yathanushāsanam shastramityabhidhiyate. Tattva hitayo. Tattva is the things that exist as they are. Well, the Shastrakaras say, merely because you see a thing as something is not the credential for its veracity. Things don't exist as they are. On the other hand, things exist as you are inclined to perceive them. This is well known to us. You look at a person and you have a judgment. You deal with him for 4 days, you have a different opinion of him altogether. The person has not changed. The physical appearance has not changed. And the retinal impression that he can make has not changed. But your attitude has changed. Your judgment has changed. Your experience with him has. So they say the world is not as it sees, as it looks. The world is as you see it. The same thing might be attractive to me, may not be attractive to you. It might be good for me, it might be bad for you. So the things are not there because of an objective compulsion. Things are there because of your subjective projections. You project on to the objects your own likes and dislikes, your own values. This book has a value to me provided I can make use of it. And a child has no value for this. A person who can't read has no value for a book. The book's value consists not in that material thing, but in the person who makes use of it. The same thing might have a value to one in one particular situation. It might not have a value to him in a different situation. The food, when I am hungry, has a value. When I am satiated, the same food is aversive to me. What was once very attractive becomes very aversive. 1 cup of coffee is very welcome. 2 cups might be tolerable. 3 cups would be forbidding. So, coffee is the same. So, the objective assessment of things is dependent entirely on the subjective inclinations. So, this word shasana or shasate is, when you transact with the world, you don't transact with it as a neutral being. You don't transact with the world in an impersonal way. You transact with people and things around you from your own personal angle. You have your desires. You have your preconceived notions. You have your prejudices. You have your prejudgments. And you look at a person, look at a thing only in that light. So, Every person that transacts with the world is a primed person, a prepared person. We are prepared to transact with the world in characteristic ways. And this Shasana means, but the individual should know what is right and what is wrong, what is real and what is unreal. So this is not got merely by living through life. This comes into existence as a result of your exercising the higher centers. You are thinking about it, your analytical judgment about it, your analysis of the things. So all this category of intellectual ponderings over the world is included in the Shasana. The word Shasana or Tattva. Tatu is that. Tattva is thatness. The object as it is, independent of my judgment or my need for it or my prejudices with regard to it. A thing as it is. So, it teaches you to jump out of your skin, as it were, and look at things for what they are worth. An individual is trained to develop an objective outlook about things. It might be very pleasant to me, but my feeling should not interfere with the assessment of the object as such. So the mind is trained to look at the world in a purely objective fashion. This is the first part of the Shastra. Shastra teaches us the different methods. The Nyaya, Vaisheshika have evolved an elaborate methodological framework to develop this objective outlook, to minimize the subjective involvements and to develop an objective outlook on life. And then the second part of this word, Shastra, is trying, tranane. But the purpose of developing this objective outlook is that you are not harassed by the world, that you are protected from the things that happen outside you and independent of you, or about which your judgment is accurate and veridical. Well, this is called the Hita. What is good for each individual, what is good for one may not be good for another, but the object must be the same for all. But what the individual gets as a feedback from looking at that object is subjective, is personal, is characteristically peculiar and relevant to each individual thereof. So the individual should be protected. So this Shastra is a device which not only makes you look at the world as it is, but to safeguard your interests well. So this Shastra is therefore is a method, is a discipline by means of which the individual's good is safeguarded. The individual's good in terms of his ability to have all the fourfold values in life, like dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So axiologically, all our lives are to maximize the fourfold purposes in life. The body has desires, the sense organ has inclinations, and the mind has its own proclivities, and they have to be satisfied. This is the kama. Kama is the desires on the part of the individual, all sorts of desires. Desire to survive, desire to reproduce, desire to live well, desire to live. So the entire gamut of our desires, which are physical, psychological, and social. And then the wherewithal to get them, the means by which these desires could be fulfilled. This is the artha, kama, and then the artha. And when there is a tussle or a conflict between various kamas, or the kama and the artha, then there is a sociological principle which makes you give up one and take to another, or to reconcile the two, and this we call dharma. Dharma is derived from the root dhrang dharane, which upholds a man, which supports a man, which keeps a man from falling. Dhrang dharane. So dharma is that which keeps an individual intact. When there is an overmuch of desire, and you don't have the wherewithal to enjoy all those desires, you must fall back on your analysis of how thus far and no further. The principle of thus far and no. So this entire thing is dharma, which relates to the individual's own personal life, the individual's family life, the community life, the social life, and the values which are prevalent. So therefore this dharma is a method of making a balance. Dharmam arthena, artham kamena, etc., etc. Of course, this was the original meaning of the dharma. Now dharma has come to mean several things which are not very relevant to the philosophical discussion about dharma. Well, the last thing is moksha, or the fulfillment of one's life. This moksha is a negative word. It is derived from the root muchu. Muchu is to free, to escape, to eschew, to give up. So moksha is what you give up. Moksha is what you escape from. And this is the escape from the ills of life, escape from the stresses of life, which was figuratively called salvation, emancipation, and so on. But in the original sociological analysis of the values, the dharma, artha, kama, moksha had a meaning for every individual. Every individual in his life has these fourfold values to look up to. So the latter part of the word Shastra deals with these Purusharthas. So you know the world so that you can live well. You don't know the world for its own sake. It's not like science for science's own sake. You should know the world correctly because you can live well. What's the use of knowing well the world when you can ill afford to live well? That's what Abercrombie once said. Well, the Shastra, therefore, it rests on the observation, number one. You can't know the world correctly until you exercise your sense organs. And the sense organs are passive. The mind goes with the sense organs. We, in our scheme of psychophysical equipment, the sense organ is called the Indriya. Indriya, the word means Indrasyedam Indriyam, the faculty of Indra, the capacity of Indra, the potentiality of Indra. Indrasyedam Indriyam. What is this Indra? Indra is derived from the root ind, to be able to. The word ind means to be able to do something. So it is the capacity of a capable one. Indriya is the capacity of a capable one. And who is this capable one who is beyond the Indriyas? One who is common to all the Indriyas. What in old English common sense really meant. So common sense in the Anglo-Saxon context meant only that sense which was common to all the other senses, namely mind. So when you see, mind should be there. When you hear, the mind should be there. When you smell, mind should be there. So this is the common sense which is common to all the other senses. So in this indriya also, this indra is the mind. So the sense organ is there to assist the mind. Mind is the real knower. The mind sees, but the sense organ only provides the visible data to it, the ocular data to it. It's the mind that has to fix up. And if the mind does not function, your sense organ might do the work, but it might fail to register. And the Upanishads give the example of an individual walking along the street, meets an old friend of his, but he does not recognize him at all. He just moves on. But this friend is not to be slighted. So he pulls him back and says, didn't you see me? And the man says, Napasyam anyatra me manobhut. I didn't see because my mind was elsewhere. The eye might have seen him, but the mind did not register it. So he merely says, my eye might have seen, but I did not see you, because my mind was elsewhere. Anyatra me manobhut. My mind was elsewhere. So the sense organ is passive. It has no option except to receive what is given to it as an impingement from the outside world. Some sense organs have a facility. If you don't want to see, you might close your eyes. But if you don't want to hear my lecture, there is no automatic arrangement in your body to close your ears. So the sense organs are passive. They are at the mercy of the impingement of the forces from outside you. So we say the indriya has a sthana. It has a place. You can only see with your eyes. You can't see with your ears. And you can't hear with your eyes. So each sense organ has a place. It's called the sthana. And the sthana has a vritti. Vritti is a process, a mechanism. But the mind is nowhere located in the body. Is not located anywhere in the body. But every sense organ is the place of the mind. So the mind, we say, has no sthana, but the vritti of all the indriyas are the mind's vritti. So therefore, this indriya is actually the mind's making a note of the objects that stream in to us. So this is observation. Technically it's called pratyaksha. Aksha is a sense organ. Prati is in relation. You must see things as they are. And then secondly, the mind has a function apart from this association with the sense organs. It associates itself with the sense organs, but the mind can also cogitate, ponder about, think. It can, for example, recall things which are not present now. It can imagine, visualize things which are not present now. So the mind is capable of moving backwards and forwards. The mind does not deal only with the contemporary world. It can recall, it can go to the past, it can go to the future. So the mind's field of operation is wider than the sense organs. And the mind can also conjure up images, relate images, and project values. So as soon as you see an object, the mind will tell you whether you should like the object, not like the object, whether the object is beautiful, whether the object is ugly. Beauty and ugly are not given in the objects around. Beauty and ugliness are in one's mind. Well, the mind has its own operations. So on the basis of the data that is presented by the sense organs, the mind deliberates. So this deliberation on the part of the mind, needing the analysis, synthesis, etc., etc., this is called mentation or manana. Pratyaksham mananam. So the basis of philosophy or shastra is the world, objective world. But you don't stop at it at an objective level only. You build on it a mental edifice, a construction on it with your mind about its values, the presentation, the needs, etc., 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 mandana. And then the third detail is anubhava or experience. So every object that you see now will appear to you characteristically as what it looks like on the basis of your past experience. So the past experience has a very necessary role to play in influencing your current judgment. So therefore anubhava becomes a very important ingredient of this Shastra. And next, the mind should be trained to delve into the relevant factors and segregate it from the irrelevant factors. This is called the yukti, or the reason, or the tarka. So you exercise logic, you exercise reason, ratiocination, to understand the relationship between the various parts of the objects, relating them in characteristic ways, and adducing their significance to you. So yukti is a very important ingredient in the Shastra, or tarka, a rational system based on reason. And thirdly, lastly, all these would not make sense, would not present a unified front until there is an intuitive vision that you can provide on the whole thing. This is called the antardrishti. Antardrishti, or you get in a flash the significance of that object when you have gone through all this, pratyaksha, and then paramarsha or manana, and then anubhava, and then yukti. Then you get a sort of a whole picture, a picture of the whole thing. This is what Shastra means. Shastra is a framework which gradually evolves as a result of exercising these faculties on the part of the man: the observation, and then the meditation, and then the previous experience, and then reason, the application of reason, and then an intuitive apprehension of the unity of the whole thing. So now this darshana, or the insights of those of the characteristic ways of knowing the world and behaving in respect of the world, has been reduced to a Shastra, has been reduced to an intellectual, academic, systematic framework. So we have to deal with the darshana as a Shastra. Darshana as a Shastra, not darshana which is purely personal. The darshana which has been put in the form of an objective assessment for comprehension of all people who care to. Now the Darshana Shastra is what Indian philosophy would normally amount to. Shall we stop there for the... Yes?
When you explain Darshana, it seems closely linked to the human mind. In the absence of humanity or human being, there is no Darshana. Is that correct?
Very correct. If tomorrow there were to be no human beings whatsoever on earth, there is no darshan.
Just about Darshana.
Very correct. Very correct.
That's one aspect. Other ones, we talked about going to sleep state. Now, that's still in sleep state. You want to dream. Though I don't think you want to dream.
Yes, dream. They have been traditionally classified into 6 types. In a work which belongs to the latter part of the 8th century, Shaddarshana Samuchchaya, by a Jain author, Haribhadra Suri, he has mentioned darshanas are 6 in number, or 6 viewpoints. The viewpoints that one develops to understand the world and to guide his own life. These are 6 in number. The number 6 seems to have stuck, although what those 6 are have changed from time to time. In a later work in the 9th century, we have an enumeration of as many as 9 darshanas. In the 14th century, Sarvadarshana Sangraha of Madhava gives a list of 15 darshanas. So darshanas in India is not one, it's many. But the traditional reckoning, which is dated 400 to 500 years before the birth of Christ, Panini in his Ashtadhyayi, he speaks about a viewpoint which is Astika and a viewpoint which is Nastika, the earliest division of the darshanas. The Astika, Asti is. Na Asti is no, it is not. So Astika and Nastika merely means positive people, those who take the existence of certain things granted, and Nastika are the doubters or doubting Toms who didn't believe in anything. So Panini makes this distinction. There is one group of people who have a positive approach to life. They are prepared to believe that things exist. There is another group which dismiss this attitude altogether. But what actually this Astika and Nastika meant has changed from period to period. In the earliest period, Asti and Nasti merely meant the authority of the Vedas, Veda Pramanya. Those who believed that the Vedas were telling us the truth about the world, that the Vedas were correct in asking us to organize our lives in characteristic ways. So these were the Astikas. Those who were prepared to follow the injunctions given in the Vedas and in the tradition following the Vedas. For example, the Upanishads, and later on the Prasthanatrayi, the Shruti, Smriti, etc., etc. So there is one class of people who are prepared to look at the world and organize their life on the basis of the authority of the Vedas. They were the Astikas. There were others who merely said Vedas are like books, and books are composed by human minds. And what one man says may not be acceptable to all others. So Vedas are like any Laukika Grantha or any ordinary work. So why should you credit Veda with an extra authority? So they dismissed, they declined to take the authority of the Veda, or any scriptures for that matter. What Vedas are to us, Quran might be to somebody, Bible or the Old Testament to some others, Guru Granth Sahib for some others, like this. So the Astikas are those who are prepared to see the world in the light that's provided by their scriptures and to organize their life in accordance with them. The Nastika is characteristically different from this group. In the next stage of development, Astika merely meant Asti Paralokam Iti. One who believed in rebirth, one who believed that there was something else also to us, he is an Astika. It is not enough if you believe in the things that you can see. Everybody believes. To see is to believe. But an astika is trained to recognize that what you see is not the ultimate stuff of the world. There is something else beyond. What you can't see and what you don't see also exists. This is the astika. Astika is one. Na ayam lokaha nasti parayiti mani. The nastika on the other hand says, this world is all that exists. This life is all that exists. This moment is all that exists. To hell with everything else. This nasti, ayam lokaha, nasti paraha. So this is a nastika. Nastika can only believe in things that he can see. And he has no inclination to believe in anything that he can't see. So nasti paraloka. Paraloka is the rebirth. That after death, death is not a wall, it's a door. When you die, everything of you is not dead. Something remains and is carried over to the next life. But nobody comes from the next life and says that I was like this. So you have to believe it. You can't see it. See the next birth, you might wish for it or don't wish for it. But that it is there is to guide your life. The fear of hell. Hell might be there, but might not be there. But the fear of hell is a deterring factor. So the astika came to mean those who believed also in the things that one can't see. These are the astikas, believers. They believe. And they recognize that their sense organs are not the ultimate things. They don't give you a correct picture of the world. The third definition of this astika, nastika, was existence of God as a determining force, as a controlling force. Astika is a believer in God. Nastika is a non-believer in God. Well, whatever the ontological emphasis of the word astika and nastika, there were some schools which aligned themselves to the Vedic corpus, either directly or indirectly. The Vedas, as you know, are the earliest documents of man's thinking. You don't find a work earlier to the Vedas. The Vedas are the earliest documents of man anywhere. And the first part of the Vedas is what is called the Rig Veda, which consists of hymns, about 10,000 and odd hymns, arranged in 10 books, which are called the mandalas. And you would be surprised to know that Veda is not a philosophical work, nor is it a religious work. Veda is pure poetry. And much of Veda is nature poetry. But here and there are gleanings, the poetic gleanings, which are philosophically valid. And the structure of the Vedas is that the sage, Vedas are called Apaurusheya. Apaurusheya is impersonal. There is no author of the Veda. Veda was not composed by any human individual. What do we mean by it? Because when we recite any mantra of the Veda, we also mention the Rishi who was responsible for it. For example, the Gayatri, which is very familiar. The Gayatri mantra, when we recite it, we also recite who was the person who gave this mantra, which is the deity for whom this mantra is meant, and what is the chandas in which the mantra is written. This Rishi, Chanda and Devata, they must be given for every mantra. Gayatri, for example, Vishwamitra Rishi, Savita Devata, Gayatri, Chandaha, and then we recite. So what's the meaning of saying that the Vedas have no authors? It just means Vedas were not composed by ordinary human beings in their normal state of mind. When they were beside themselves in an ecstasy or an intuitive expanse, it was then that the Vedas came out spontaneously. So all these poems or hymns were given in this kind of state, yoga state. Well, if it's not very irrelevant, I'll give you a small episode from Mahabharata which makes you understand the spirit of the scripture better. In Mahabharata, after all the battle is fought, the Kauravas have been killed and the Pandavas have become victorious, and Dharmaraya performs the great Ashwamedha Yaga, and Krishna, whose job is done, he wants to return to Dwarka. Krishna is on the point of returning to Dwarka. And Arjuna at that time comes to him and says, well, Krishna, some time ago on the battlefield, you told me a lot of details of what is called the yoga. But at that time I was preoccupied. My mind was in jitters. So I could not catch all that you said. Nashtam me bhrashta chetasa. My mind was wandering. I couldn't understand what you said. Will you please repeat it for me now before you go away to Dwarka and I don't see you again? Krishna for the first time becomes very angry. Krishna tells Arjuna, Durmedhahyasi, you are a fool. Mahad apriyankritam me, you have done me a disservice. You did not listen to it when I said it. And Nashakyate punaha vaktum asheshena gadhuna param hi brahma kathitam yoga yuktena tanmaya. I was able to tell you that Gita because I was in a state suitable to it. Where do I get that state now? How can I tell you the Gita? So the real authorship of the Gita is not the man Krishna who was a charioteer to Arjuna. Krishna himself, at that time I was in a state of mind which was expansive. I could tell you the Gita. Nashakyate punaha vaktum asheshena. How can I tell you now? You are a big fool to expect that I will be able to repeat the Gita. Well, the Vedas were composed like this. All great works, in fact, they have come down to us because they were in states which were expansive. In the grand state, a poem comes. And when Leonardo da Vinci was in an expansive mood, a beautiful painting comes out. Not when he is... So Vedas are apaurushaya only in this sense. That
these other grunts like Ramayana,
they were all...
they were all written by these saints
who had little better to do. All great works have been done by people who had nothing better to do. So he just sat idly and he conjured up about the state of things when there was nothing so specific as all this. So all this must have come out of something which was not so specific, like an individual being born as a child. But in the womb state, he is a lump, he is a mass. And as soon as he is born, he is an amorphous lump of feelings. Gradually things spell out. So there must have been some time back, some way back, a state of existence where nothing was so explicit as all this. So he says in this verse, Na sadasi, no sadasi, tadanim nasi drajaha, no vyoma paro yat, At that time, was there something? There was nothing. But was there nothing? Nothing is an opposite of something. When you say nothing, there must be something. But at that time, nothing was also not there. Something was not there. Nothing also was not there. Na sadasi, no sadasi, tadani. We are thinking of a time when the whole thing came out. But how do you describe that state? As something? As nothing? Well, everything was a mass of darkness. And could anybody perceive this darkness? Tama asi tamasa gulham agre. Darkness was hidden in the womb of darkness. From that state, there was something breathing. And from that breathing, the mind shot forth like a ray of light. Mana asit prathamaja. The mind shot up as a ray of light, and that became the desire. The desire to be and the desire to create. So Veda contains thoughts like this which are nebulous. And the Upanishads try to crystallize these thoughts into the concept of the world, the concept of the Brahman, the concept of the individual, and the relationship between the individual and the world, individual and the Brahman, and so forth. So the Vedic corpus for the Astikas meant not so much the Veda as such, but the Upanishads. So Vedic authority meant for the Darshanas Upanishadic authority. And the Upanishads came at the end of the Vedic corpus. Vedas structurally are grouped into 4 phases. The first phase, which consists only of poems like this, these were called the Samhita state. Samhita is collected. So there were a large number of these hymns. Somebody took the trouble to collect about 10,000 of them and put them into a book. These were the Samhita. Samhita means collected together. Then at the second stage, there was a period of ritualistic preoccupation. To please the divine beings, the unseen forces, several rituals were resorted to. And these rituals were called the Brahmanas. Not the caste Brahmana, but the Brahmana meant the ritual. The yajna, the yaga, the sacrifices of various sorts, the attendant disciplines, etc. And some of the Vedic hymns were forced into these rituals. They were adapted to these rituals. Irrelevantly, of course, but they were adapted. So this part is called the Brahmanas, which was coeval with the Veda called the Yajurveda. Yajus is the sacrifice. Yajurveda is the Veda of the sacrifices, big and small, like Ashwamedha, Rajasuya, Vajapeya, and several sacrifices. And the third stage was when some people in the community began to get disillusioned about the efficacy of the rituals. They began to wonder, why should you sacrifice in order to placate a deity? And when the Vedas mention about these sacrifices, did they really mean what the words say? They began to think about the possible symbolism of these rituals. These were the Aranyakas. So they refused to participate in these rituals. They stood aside and began to think. We speak of the Ashwamedha. Does Ashwamedha mean the sacrificing of a poor horse? Is it the killing of the horse that what was meant? But it does not go well with the other injunctions of the Veda. Nahim syat sarvabhutani. You should not hurt even a fly. So there is a Vedic injunction which says you must eschew violence of all kinds. Nahimsyat sarvabhutani. How does it agree with a horse being sacrificed by you to placate a deity? So they said this must not have been the meaning of the Veda. Ashva means the ego. The ego which does not stay constant. Ashva. Shva is Shashvata. Ashva is inconstant. So the ego has to be sacrificed. In Ashwamedha, it is the individual's ego that has to be sacrificed and not the poor horse. And they pointed out to the Vedas. The Vedic hymn only says that. The Vedic hymn asks you to be humble, to have humility. And this is what the Ashwamedha really means. It does not mean a sacrifice. So, a collection of these symbolic explanations you find in the books called the Aranyakas. Aranyakas are the third stage of the Vedic corpus where symbolisms were made much of. At the end of these Aranyakas come the stage of the Upanishads. Upanishad, the very word means, sadhu is to sit. It has two prefixes, upa and ni. Upa means near. To sit near a teacher confidentially for a talk. It's not the public speech. You sit near the teacher. Upa samipe guroho. He goes to a teacher, asks him questions in private and listens to it in confidence, because these deal with higher matters and not of popular interest. And the second prefix, ni, it means nitaram, well. He sits well. He does not go sit there for 1 hour to go away, but he is prepared to sit there for years and years to understand the aspect of the universe which is bothering him. So this Upanishad is a secret document given by a teacher to one or more disciples who have settled down for a serious study in these matters. And there is a story given. Bharadwaja was a sage. He lived for 100 years trying to know the Brahman. At the end of which Indra came and he said, well, you have lived for 100 years. I'll give you, and you have done nothing except in search for Brahman. Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is looking for Brahman, searching for Brahman. 100 years you have wasted searching for Brahman. Well, you are a good man, I'll give you another 100 years. What will you do? And this Bharadwaja coolly said, Brahmacharyam vasan. I'll search for Brahman. Well, at the end of another 100 years, Indra came and said, you have wasted 200 years of your life. But I am prepared to give you another 100 years. What will you do? What plans have you? Brahmacharyam vasan. So, this is what that prefix ni means. He sits well with no other interest, not hurrying. He sits at the feet of the teacher trying to know the reality. So Upanishads are documents like this. They are like conference reports. A teacher goes to, students go to a teacher, ask him a question, and he answers. They are all documented in the Upanishads. So these Upanishads are long and short works. Some Upanishads are long, like Chandogya and Brihadaranyaka. Some Upanishads are short. There are 10 major Upanishads which form the bedrock of Indian thought. And these 10 are usually stylized. Ishakena Katha Prasna Mundaka Mandokyata Ittariya Aitareya Brihadaranyaka Chandogyani. These are the 10 principal Upanishads. And for everything of Indian thought, for the Darshana Shastra, these 10 Upanishads provide the material. and the attitudinal orientation, including such heterodox systems like Jainism, Buddhism and Charvaka. So these Upanishads provide the basic material for the Darshana Shastra. They contain the very essence of what Indian thought has been trying to grapple with. So there is no inconsistency. Krishna has been consistently decrying the Veda and decrying the Vedic authority. And Krishna insists on free will and thought. And Krishna, having told him all about everything for 18 chapters, 17 chapters, at the end Krishna says, you must have read it, I have told you a lot of things. Vimrasyaitadasheshena yathechasi tatha kuru. I have told you many things. With calmness, with coolness, you deliberate on what I have said. Yet vimrasya yetad asheshena. You throw out what is irrelevant to you. You take what is acceptable to you. Yathechasi tatha kuru. Whatever you want to do, you do. So this is against the spirit of the Vedas. So Bhagavad Gita is not a text of the Vedic tradition. That's why until Shankaracharya there was no commentary on the Gita. So Gita was for a long time considered an Avaidika or non-Vedic text. That's one explanation. Another explanation is Traigunya Vishaya Veda. It means that all the matters that the Veda deals with relate to these three gunas which compose this universe, which constitute this universe, sattva, rajas and tamas. But an individual's body which is composed of these three gunas, they are not ultimate. Body is mundane, mechanical, and it's merely a vehicle of the soul. Nistraigunnyo bhava. You rise above this body and attend to the soul, the spirit which is immortal. So that is the traditional explanation. Traditional explanation of this Nistraigunya is Dehabhimani ma bhutva. Shankaracharya, for example, on this particular verse he says, Dehabhimani ma bhutva. Don't appropriate the body to yourself. There is need on your part to rise above the body and all its constraints. This is what Nistraigunnyo bhava Arjuna. Krishna did not say Avedo bhava. You reject the Veda. Krishna does not say that. Nistraigunya bhava. You rise above the three gunas. Well, that's the other explanation. Well, to get back to, will you kindly tell me what? That was regarding his question. Upanishads. Chandogya Upanishad. Now, these Upanishads, some of them are long Upanishads, like Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka. Some of them are very short Upanishads, like Isha Upanishad or Mundaka Upanishad. They are short Upanishads. But all of them are anti-ritual in nature. Upanishads, they frown on these rituals, the karmakanda, the way, the yagas, the yajna, the sacrifices of various sorts. One of the Upanishads, the Katha Upanishad, for example, comes down very heavily on the priestly class and on the rituals. Dandramyamana pariyanti mudha. These fools who engage themselves in rituals, andhena yava niyamana yatandha. Like blind men being led by the blind, these priests go about leading these ignorant folk to rituals. This will give you an insight into the spirit of the Upanishads. It is anti-ritual. And secondly, the Vedas when they describe the nature around us, the dawn, the evening, the morning, the sun, the waters, etc., etc., take your mind away from yourself to the outside world. But there is need on your part to turn inward. Another Upanishad says, Parang chekhanit vyatranata swayambhuhu tasmat parang pasyati nantaratman. Our sense organs are so made that they turn outward. The eye is made to see the outside things. The eye does not see what is within it. The ear is made to hear the outside sound. If you begin to hear the sound inside your ear, you have to consult a doctor. The eyes are not made to hear, because there is a lot of sound going on in your body. As I say, a big battle is going on inside the body. And even the performance of the vital functions, they engender so much of noise. Your digestion, if you can only hear your digestion, you would run away from your stomach. It's not possible though.
You can hear these sounds if you close the ears.
Huh?
You can hear all these sounds if you close the ears.
Not all the ears, only the sound of the Hamsa mantra. Well, the ear, all our sense organs are made to grapple with the things outside us. That's why a man is naturally involved with the outside world. Parang chikane vyatranat tasmat parang pasyati na antaratman. Nobody would look into himself. When I joined the psychology department once, somebody very seriously told me, normal people are interested in the things which are material. If a man is interested in the mind and what the tricks of the mind are, there's something wrong with him. It's only a mind. It's only a man who is not mentally all right will think of his mind. A normal man will think of the other things. So why did you take this course? Well, normally people don't look inward. Na antaratman. But the Upanishad says, Adhakaschid dhiraha pratyag atmana maichat avritta chakshuhu amritatvamichan. But 1 in 1,000, there is a man who is courageous enough to close his outward eye and open the inward eye. Look within himself. Avritta chakshuhu pratyag atmana maichat. He looked within what he was like, and his motivation was to get at the truth. Well, Upanishad points out that involvement with the world is for the ordinary folk. But looking within, knowing the self, what the constitution is and what the real self is, this should be the preoccupation. That's why the message of the Upanishad was Atmavare Vijaniyat. Know yourself. Anyavacho vimunchatha. Leave off all other things. Know yourself. Knowing the world is of no benefit to you. Knowing yourself, there is all benefit for you. So the Upanishads were a break away from the Vedic tradition in these two respects. Anti-ritualistic, and it was against the involvement with the world. So the inquiry started with the Upanishads. For example, a man, able-bodied, well-to-do, this comes in the Taittiriya Upanishad, and he has all his desires fulfilled. His pleasure, his happiness, if you take that as one, and the whole sequence is called Anandasya Mimamsa. an inquiry into Ananda. What is this happiness that we all seek for? What is this happiness really? Upanishad makes an inquiry like this. An able-bodied man, he is healthy, he is wealthy, he has all. This is one happiness. But is that all? There is a happiness beyond it. There is a happiness beyond it. So this happiness occurs in a hierarchy. So you don't stop at a particular stage of happiness and say, this is all, I rest content with it. No, you want another piece of... So this Anandasya Mimamsa will drive you to get at something, having got which you have no desire to get anything else. Yam labdhva cha aparam labham manyate nadhikam tataha. Having got that, you don't desire for anything else. This is Anandasya Mimamsa. So Upanishad deals with such inquiries. A man who is content, he does not run about. He is not frustrated. He is not disappointed. He does not aspire for anything. Is this not greater than aspiring for a thing and getting a thing? So to give you an insight into the spirit of the Upanishads. So Upanishad advocates an increasing dissociation from the things of the world, an over attachment with the things outside, and a greater and greater introspective trend. The individual should wrap himself up in thoughts about his own inner core. What's that light of consciousness which shines within, which is more important than a million suns? You can see the sun provided you have a sun in your eye. If you don't have that light in your eye, what will the sun do? How can you see the sun? Yosa vasau aditye. Whatever light is in the aditya, that is chakshushi, that's in your eye. The sun is not out there, he is inside you. So the Upanishads pointed out that the entire world is in your body. The entire world is in you. So you should know yourself and not the world. So this gave the spirit of introspection and an inquiry without any aspiration for improvement. So the Upanishads pointed out there were two goals before man. Every individual has two goals, two paths in front of him. One leads him to advancement in the worldly life. This is called Abhyudaya. Abhyudaya is progress in the world. You get more money, you get more comforts, you get this, you get that, and you surround yourself with all the things that you like, etc., etc. This is Abhyudaya, worldly prosperity. But the other goal, other path in front of you is an absolute contentment. This is called the Nishreyasa. Nishreyasa is to be absolutely peaceful, tranquil, which is the highest goal in life. So Upanishad advocated the latter goal, Nishreyasa. And for this, an inquiry into yourself is a sine qua non. You can't get this tranquility without this. And when you inquire into yourself, it is not with your mind. Na manasa veditavyaha. It's not your mind that can give you the secret of reality, because mind also is that instrument. And one of the Upanishads says, Yan manasana manute yenahur mano matam tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yajidam upasate. The reality is not what your eye can see. The reality is that by means of which the eye can see at all. That is real. Without which the eye can't see. What the eye sees objectively is not the reality, but the very basis for the eye, that is the reality. So the Upanishads, they encouraged not only an intellectual involvement, but beyond that, tapasa dhyanena, contemplation, meditation, and a quiet retreat into oneself. They suggested that this was the way to encounter reality. Reality is not available for intellectual apprehension. Reality could be experienced by you, provided you prepare the ground for it, emotionally, intellectually, physically, and physiologically. So all the systems of darshanas, 6, 9 or 15, they all have this basic approach given by the Upanishads. Anti-ritualistic and an intensive search for the reality and dependence, not merely on what your mind